Hi everyone, I'm Amanda. I'm the host of Clothes Horse, which is a podcast, and I'm also the person behind this social media account. And earlier today, I shared a carousel of amazing, adorable vintage horse photography with statements and facts that I like to use as sort of like conversation starters when I'm talking to other people about slow fashion, the impact of overconsumption, and the roles that they and all of us can play in changing that. A lot of conversations about sustainable fashion, slow fashion, just making stuff more sustainable in general, often really tend to focus on technology and the importance of funding that technology and really like the technology being the solution and the greatest resource. And I do think that that is important, but really, in my opinion, the greatest resource, the most powerful tool that we have in changing this exploitative, destructive system is you, me, and everyone we know, because we as people have the power to push back against this system and force it to change and dismantle it, because the system no longer exists. The system of selling us fast fashion and fast everything, it no longer exists if we aren't buying into it anymore. And so we have so much power here when we push against brands and retailers, and we also withhold our money, right? And change our own behaviors, right? So we actually have like a big stake in this, but we also have so much power. So I thought I would share some of these conversation starters and tell you how and where I work those into conversation in a non-confrontational, non-shamey, judgmental way, because that's really important, right? This is a judgment-free zone. Shame is not the way forward. So let's take a look at some of these. Okay, this fact right here is a banger. There are enough clothes on the planet right now to dress the next 6 generations of people. This data came from the British Fashion Council, and while it's really staggering, I am not surprised by it because I hear stories about rag yards. I see the unwanted clothing piling up in the desert in Chile and on the beaches in Ghana and in the landfills, and I see the bursting racks at the thrift store and at the bins, just so many clothes that no one will ever wear. And I really like this as a conversation starter for people who say that certain types of people shouldn't be shopping secondhand, whether it's because they're too rich or they are too old or too young or too whatever. The reality is that everybody needs to be shopping secondhand as often as possible, because there's already enough clothes out there. And if the clothes aren't that great, we need to figure out how to make them better, right? Work with what we have already. And at the same time, push back on brands to make better stuff, right? So this is always how I push back on people who say that like rich people shouldn't thrift, or people shouldn't thrift. Everyone should thrift if they can, right? It's not an option for everybody for a variety of reasons. There's a certain level of privilege associated with being able to easily shop secondhand. It includes like your size, where you live, your mobility, your time, etc. But when you can, you should shop secondhand. Okay, my furry hat's kind of cutting this one off, but nothing's disposable is so important to me. Yes, there are certain things that have to be disposable, especially things related to medical stuff, right? But in general, I think that the era of really cheap fast fashion has led us to believe that a lot of clothes and other things that are very inexpensive are kind of like semi-disposable. You know, I think back to all the times I would go to Forever 21 and buy something for $10 and only get to wear it once and be like, well, it was only $10. But the reality is that thing that broke that I couldn't repair, that I paid $10 for, maybe it was with me for a really short period of time, but it sat in the landfill and is still sitting there and will be sitting there long after I'm not on the earth anymore. Nothing really is disposable. Everything has an impact. And when you start to understand that, it's a great way to edit out what you're going to buy. Like, think about longevity and if you're ready to make the commitment to it. So I always like to talk about that when people bring up things like cost per wear or what they should invest in versus not what they should invest in. I think realizing that nothing is disposable no matter how much we pay for it it's really eye-opening. Okay, I moved over to the other side for this one. Shop from people, not corporations. I will tell you right now that small business is the future. I spend a lot of time thinking about the social, community, financial impact of small businesses. And one thing I kind of had this like light bulb moment this week is that when you spend your money at, say, Target, right, and you go there and you pay for things and you leave, the money that you gave Target kind of moves away from you in a line, right? Of course, along the way, some employees get paid, but like the bare minimum. And, Target spends other money on like rent and utilities, all that stuff. But ultimately, the money moves away from your community and it kind of ends up with shareholders and executive bonuses and whatnot. And it probably doesn't come back into the community. But when you shop with a small business, like from a person, that money actually moves in kind of a circle where it keeps returning to the community, maybe even never leaves because they shop from you, they give their money to their workers, organizations in their community, they actually are like paying rent and other things within their community, right? Buying supplies within the community. And so the money just keeps traveling around in a circle rather than moving off and being hoarded away by someone who probably didn't need the money in the first place. So I think that's another way to talk about why it is so powerful and important to shop small. This one is one of my favorites because, I've been working on Clothes Horse now for more than 3 years. I posted so much stuff on social media. And every time I talk about synthetic fabrics, the same thing happens. Someone shows up to say, well, this wouldn't happen if everything we wore was made of cotton or wool or other natural fibers. And the thing about that is, it seems like a really obvious solution, but the problem is less the fibers. And yes, I have a major issue with synthetic fibers for sure. The problem is the overconsumption. And so if we continue to consume clothing at the rate we are right now, and it's all made of cotton, what we're really looking at is an even bigger environmental disaster because we're looking at all kinds of farmland being used to grow cotton versus food. We're looking at a lot more water waste, pesticide use, and just general more exhaustion of our natural resources. And those clothes still might not even be biodegradable thanks to dyes and other treatments. Like, there is no easy solution. Well, okay, there is one easy solution, and that is that we buy less stuff in the first place, but no fiber is going to fix it for us. This one is really closely related to that because I think a lot of greenwashing tries to tell us that if we buy this sustainable or conscious or responsible collection, then we can continue to shop as we always have and overconsume things, but it will be okay. And unfortunately, once again, the only solution that really makes a massive environmental difference is buying less stuff in the first place. It's not sexy, but it's the reality. It's like, it's shopping secondhand, it's buying less new stuff, it's keeping stuff longer, it's mending, it's repairing, it's proper laundry. That's the real solution. I want to wrap this all up because you've been listening to me talk for a long time. Thank you in advance. By saying, like, you and me, we have so much potential, so much magic, so much change we can make just by talking to the people in our lives. And it doesn't have to be a full-on like PowerPoint presentation of facts. It can just be a really casual conversation like, hey, I'm going thrifting today, or I bought this cool thing on Poshmark instead of buying it new, and here's why, and I'm so stoked. Even just simple things like that get the seed of change planted. They make people start thinking about things. They normalize things that haven't been normal, and they unnormalize things that we want to change, right? So this social change that turns into systemic change, it starts with all of us. And I really believe in what we can do when we all work together. Thanks for watching.